Chapter 417 Being a soldier feels good. Several simple statements taught these recruits who had just entered the army camp a new lesson. Their laziness and idleness from before was a lot more toned down, and the 3 officers in chainmail armor led them off to the army barracks. The 300 fighting soldiers were led to 10 bunkhouses. Each bunkhouse was quite spacious, and each one could accommodate 30 soldiers. Yuao's bunk was the first among these 10 bunks. Furthermore, according to their allocations earlier, he was in charge of this bunk. This meant that the affairs within his bunk were temporarily in his command. Complaints and curses started as soon as all 30 soldiers entered the bunkhouse. I'm so tired. We've been standing the entire morning, and only now are they letting us eat. I guess it's not so easy being a soldier after all. One skinny recruit mumbled with a gloomy look on his face. Another relatively fatter soldier said, let's not talk about that. I've been cooked to the point where I'm sweating oil. 30 people staying together. This bunk is already starting to smell. We're going to have a tough time. If I'd known all this, I wouldn't have enlisted as a soldier. My dad insisted that I train myself in the military. This really makes people speechless. Similar voices rang out in every corner of Yuao's bunkhouse. Yuao found a berth for himself in the corner after he entered the room. A bunk actually meaning a simple cot. It was a straw mat laid out over a wooden frame, and a thin mattress was laid out on the straw mat, with a blanket on top of the mattress. This was the standard setup for every bunk in the room. Yuao had no complaints about this because he didn't care about it at all. He placed his uniform on the blanket and his spear to one side. He didn't even need his eyes to see. His spiritual power covered the entire room. There were 29 other people in his room, and every single person was now within his perception. Nobody could hide anything under his careful observation. Most of the others were still complaining. They were clearly unadjusted to army life, but there were some others who were very calm, such as a soldier roughly 20 years of age on a bunk not far from Yuao. His build was average, and he looked very composed. Furthermore, there were dashes of coldness between his eyebrows. He clearly didn't quite fit in with the other recruits. Besides Yuao, there were 6 others among the group who could face the novelty of entering army life with a relatively calm attitude. They quickly packed their things up properly, and 2 of them stood up and were about to go out to eat. Yuao stood up and suddenly clapped his hands. Clap, clap, clap. 3 crisp sounds could be heard, and Yuao immediately attracted every recruit's attention. Quiet down for a moment, everyone. Let me say a few words. Yuao spoke with a faint smile on his face. He had changed his appearance to someone who had a very simple and honest look, and this smile made him seem even more so. Furthermore, his smile even seemed a little rustic. Everyone stared at the leather armor that Yuao was wearing, and he had their attention. The entire room actually quickly quieted down. Yuao said, my brothers, we have all reported to a new army camp today, and today is our first day. Everyone must have seen what happened just now. If we don't perform well, we might just be allocated to become an auxiliary soldier. I don't think anyone wants to become an auxiliary soldier, right? Since we have been allocated into the same squad, we will be brothers in arms in the future. We have to fight and slay our enemies together if we get to go onto the battlefield. Our 3 months of basic military training will be very important for us. That officer already said that only those who perform excellently can truly become fighting soldiers. That means we are up against the recruits from the 9 other bunks. They are all our rivals and competitors. If we want to become fighting soldiers, then we have to perform better than they do. That means teamwork is paramount. We're all recruits, and everyone in the other bunks won't be familiar with one another. Everyone is still like a plate of scattered sand. If first bunk's brothers can unite, then none of the other bunks will be a match for us. We will move forward and backward together in the future. What do you guys think? Yuao's speech was quite inciting, juxtaposed with his tone, and with an infusion of a thread of his spiritual power. Most of the recruits in first bunk were moved. However, there were also dissonant voices. The fatso that was complaining before this slanted his mouth and said, do you really think you're in charge? Don't you just have some leather armor on you? We're all recruits. What makes you think you can tell us what to do? Let's not bother with him. Everyone, let's go and eat. He turned and walked out as he spoke. There were several other recruits like him who had indifferent expressions. Mocking looks flashed across their faces when they heard his words. Yuao's eyes flickered as he bolted forward, and he blocked the fat recruit's path with a few steps. He withdrew his simple and honest smile, and he stared seriously at the fat soldier in front of him. What I just said isn't just a suggestion, it's also an order. The fat soldier glared at Yuao and said, fuck, who do you think you are? What makes you think you can control me? Fuck off. He reached out with a large hand that resembled a cattail leaf fan as he spoke, and he attempted to shove Yuao on the chest. Yuao smiled faintly, and he raised his left hand and pinched the web between the fat soldier's thumb and his forefinger. The fat soldier stumbled and slammed towards Yuao. Yuao slanted his body towards one side and stepped lightly with the tip of his foot on the tip of the fat soldier's foot. The fatso immediately lost his balance and fell face first to the ground. Our superior has said that I am the person in charge of first bunk. That means I have to be responsible for everyone. You don't have to listen to my orders, and you can be unconvinced of my authority. You can leave as long as you defeat me. Furthermore, if you manage to do so, I will report to the superior and relinquish my duties as the person in charge of this bunk. The fatso who had just crashed to the ground roared as he leapt to his feet and charged at Yuao once more. Yuao didn't move at all. He placed his feet at shoulder width and squatted down a little in a horse stance. Yuao let the fatso slam against the side of his body. The fatso was quite heavy, and adding in his forward momentum, the impact was relatively forceful. However, the moment that he slammed against Yuao, he felt as if he was slamming into a wall, and he bounced out after their collision. He rolled across the floor several times before he could stabilize himself, and knocked himself so dizzy that he looked like he couldn't get up at all. Yuao didn't even look at him. Who else wants to try? The other recruits stared at him with slightly different expressions after this display. Quite a few soldiers were thinking to themselves, this fella can wear leather armor. He is quite different from the others. Yuao wasn't hasty at all, and just waited there quietly. The calm youth that Yuao had paid attention to before this stepped out and came in front of Yuao. He said, I agree with how you're getting us to work together. However, I want to try you. Come. Yuao nodded at him. This youth growled as he took a quick step forward. His movements were very agile, and when he was right in front of Yuao, he bent down and punched at Yuao's abdomen. This soldier moved at lightning speed, and his actions were very smooth. Yuao extended his right hand and blocked the fist. The youth pulled back very quickly, but Yuao was faster. His fingers were like an iron claw that locked the youth's fist inside his palm. Yuao shook his right arm a little and threw the youth into the air. The youth felt as if his entire body was going soft, and all the strength in his body was about to be shaken away by Yuao. Yuao lifted his left leg and pushed lightly on the youth's waist. He released his right hand, and the youth returned to his original posture, sore and unsteady. He couldn't use any strength at all, and only barely regained his balance after swaying a little, and his lost strength gradually returned to him. This youth cupped his fists and said, I'm convinced. My name is Wang Xiaodian, and I will listen to you in the future. Yuao smiled faintly and nodded in his direction. Even though this youth didn't have any soul power, he was very agile, and his physique could be considered relatively impressive among normal human beings. After these 2 episodes, everyone else's expressions were conspicuously different from before as they stared at Yuao. Those recruits who were indifferent and a little disdainful before this withdrew their expressions, even though their appearances subtly revealed that they were still a little unconvinced. Nobody expressed their thoughts. Yuao suddenly wanted to laugh, because these recruits reminded him of how things had been when he had just entered Shrek Academy. Back then, he and Dongo were class monitors. Weren't they the ones leading their classmates to train and cultivate every day? If nobody has any more objections, let's go eat. Form up, and let's go. Yuao finally turned as he spoke, and was the first to leave the room. The recruits were intimidated by his formidable display, and they actually listened to him as they streamed out of the room one by one. Yuao briefly arranged them in formation outside the room, and they stood in 3 rows as they marched neatly towards the army canteen. The military's dining area was unsheltered, and the logistical soldiers responsible for food delivered the meals they had prepared to every respective large team. Every large team had a place where they were supposed to eat together. When Yuao brought first bunk's other 29 recruits to the canteen, there were already many soldiers eating there. Large team 2 seemed to only have these 300 recruits. The other auxiliary soldiers from before weren't here, and quite a few soldiers had already finished their meals and were enjoying some fruits and desserts. The food was quite good. There was steaming meat soup in a giant metal wok that resembled an enormous vat, with vegetables and steamed buns. The large team leader Zhuang Tian was standing behind the counter. He was personally serving his recruits, and the recruits were very quiet with him around. The other 3 officers in chainmail armor were standing by his side, helping him. Yuao nodded with approval when he saw this. The Dalu Empire's military is quite high quality. Their recruitment process from before was great, and now the large team member is personally serving food for his recruits, and that's great too. These commanders are showing grace and a firm hand at the same time. Chapter 417.2. Being a soldier feels good. Zhuang Tian and the 3 medium team leaders were a little surprised when they saw Huo Yuao leading first bunks recruits in neat rows to get their meals. These recruits hadn't seemed very disciplined to them, and even though there were some who behaved well, like Huo Yuao, the batch was generally not too impressive. Thus, these commanders truly didn't expect Huo Yuao to be able to restrain these recruits so quickly. Huo Yuao brought his comrades and paused in front of the wok that contained the meat soup. He raised his voice and said, "All 30 recruits from first bunk are here to eat. Greetings, large team leader." Zhuang Tian's expression was a lot warmer than before. He smiled and said, "Well done. Come, eat." Huo Yuao wasn't the first to get his meal. He took the lunch plate that Zhuang Tian passed him and turned around and passed it to the recruit behind him. He repeated this action while he continued reminding first bunk's recruits to keep in line. The recruits quickly got their meals in an orderly fashion before Huo Yuao brought them to a shady place and let everyone sit down to eat. After everything had been settled, he returned to Zhuang Tian and got himself a lunch plate. "Your name is Tang Dong, right?" Zhuang Tian asked as he served him a bowl of meat soup. Huo Yuao nodded and said, "Yes, sir." Zhuang Tian smiled faintly and said, "You've done well. Keep at it." "Yes, sir." Huo Yuao carried his food and jogged back to his bunk's recruits, and they ate together. Zhuang Tian smiled faintly as he watched Huo Yuao move. He nodded and said, "Not bad. He has potential. Which one of you is in charge of his bunk?" The middle-aged man that had arm-wrestled Huo Yuao before said, "Boss, I am in charge. I am also the one who chose this fellow. He's quite strong, at least not any weaker than I am. I didn't expect him to be able to do this. He's managed to keep his bunk in such order when they've only just entered the army camp. He has some tricks up his sleeve." Zhuang Tian nodded and said, "Yes, he's very impressive. However, we should test him a little more. Send someone to investigate his identity, to ensure that there's nothing wrong with him." "All right." Huo Yuao smiled faintly as he enjoyed his meal. He had long ago considered that they would check his identity, so he spent a little more money when forging his documents so that he could eliminate all possible loopholes. Huo Yuao could practically remain undiscovered even if he was investigated on a national level. He had spent 100 gold soul coins to fabricate his identity, and had confirmed that everything was all right again and again. Lunchtime was over, and Huo Yuao led first bunk's recruits back to their bunk as a group to rest. 2 hours for eating and resting wasn't considered long, and their afternoon assembly time quickly arrived. Out of the 300 recruits, not a single one was late. Evidently, the assigning of fighting soldiers and auxiliary soldiers in the morning left a dark shadow on their hearts. First bunk's recruits, with Huo Yuao leading them, were the first to arrive on the military drill ground. Many recruits were discreetly complaining, and they resented Huo Yuao for that, but their resentment immediately vanished when they arrived at the military drill ground. Because the large team leader, Zhuang Tian, and the other 3 medium team leaders were already there, standing straight on the drill ground. Zhuang Tian smiled when he saw them arrive, and he even nodded in their direction. Encouragement from superiors was clearly quite compelling for these recruits. Their resentment and complaints at being forced to come early disappeared, and everyone stood up straight. Everyone knew the benefits of showing themselves in front of their superiors. Huo Yuao jogged up before Zhuang Tian as he raised his voice and said, "Reporting to you, sir. The recruits from the 1st bunk of Team 2, of the 3rd Battalion, of the 7th Division, of the 6th Reserve Legion are all present. Please advise." Zhuang Tian nodded and said, "Very well. Rejoin your lines and place your feet at shoulder width. This is standing at ease. When I say attention, you have to close your legs and stand up straight." "Yes, sir." Huo Yuao acknowledged once and swiftly ran back to his position. His 30 recruits were all standing at ease. After almost 10 minutes, the recruits from the other bunks arrived, one after another. However, they were clearly not sorted by bunks, and everyone was scattered, but at least nobody was late. "Squad, attention." One of the mid-team leaders shouted. Zhuang Tian surveyed the recruits, who were standing up as straight as they could. He raised his voice and said, "Comrades, we will be brothers in arms from now on. Let me introduce these 3 officers standing beside me." He pointed towards the medium team leader who had tested Huo Yuao's strength as he spoke and said, "This is Shuo, medium team 1's leader." He pointed to the other 2 and said, "Yan Tian, medium team 2's leader. Long Shun, medium team 3's leader. Our large team should have 150 fighting soldiers, but there are 300 of you here. Do you know why this is so? This means that after the next 3 months of basic military training, I have the authority to reduce 150 of you to either auxiliary soldiers or send you home. However, I hope that more people can stay behind, and perhaps even the entire lot of you can stay behind, so that we can add 1 more large team. What happens will all depend on your results after training. A soldier's sacred duty is to follow orders. The first lesson I want to teach you today is how to follow orders. Shuo, Yan Tian, Longshan, sir." The 3 medium team leaders stood up straight as they shouted at the same time. Zhuang Tian said solemnly, "Everyone will stand at attention from now on. Recruits are allowed to faint, but they cannot slack off, and they cannot relax. We will continue until sunset. With those who slack off or relax." "Yes, sir." Zhuang Tian turned to leave after giving his instructions. The 3 medium team leaders smiled sardonically before they drew horsewhips from their waists and walked towards the recruits. I'm sure everyone heard the large team leader's words. "Stand up straight, everyone. Otherwise, the whip will show no mercy." Aren't we just standing around? Most recruits didn't think too much about it. Everyone stood up as straight as they could. Nobody wanted to be whipped. The 3 medium team leaders' eyes were tinged with pity towards those recruits whose backs were especially straight. Veterans all knew that they would rather climb mountains and cross rivers than stand at attention. Standing at attention tested one's willpower the most, but this was the best training for recruits. Walking underneath the sun wasn't much, but after standing for a long time, an hour passed. These recruits were all youngsters. They were at least 18 years old, and none were older than 25. Those who dared to enlist had decent physiques, but after 1 hour of standing, some recruits were starting to sway and waver. Their bodies couldn't move, and that meant their blood circulation wouldn't be smooth. In addition to the fact that they were standing up so straight, their muscles began to hurt after a while, and their breathing became a little forced and hindered. Many of their uniforms were soaked with sweat. The 3 medium team leaders didn't bother much with those soldiers who were swaying and wavering. However, they immediately whipped anyone that wanted to slack off and laze around. They didn't whip them hard, but every lash still gave those recruits a burning reminder. Huo Yuao was just standing there. His eyes were calm, and he wasn't standing up that straight, but he didn't relax one bit. He was standing steadily and stably as if he were a statue, while his heart and mind were already immersed in meditation. With his current cultivation, he didn't have to sit down and cross his legs to enter meditation. He could enter that special realm in any state. Huo Yuao's mood was lifted a little after he paid his respects to his mother, and he gradually got into character as Tang Dong after coming to this place. Standing at attention was painful and torturous to the other recruits, but this was almost considered the best kind of rest for him. Huo Yuao had been hustling too much, and his feelings had been going through roller coasters. He finally had some time to calm himself down. He was satisfied with this, and he even felt as if this was a little luxurious. However, he liked this feeling. Huo Yuao couldn't forget that when he had saved the White Tiger Duke, his bodyguards had resolutely decided to jump down a cliff to their deaths so that they wouldn't hold him back. That scene had shaken him, and also made him passionate about the military. A soldier's sacred duty is to follow orders, and a soldier's mission is to protect his nation. I have grown up, and I have joined the army to serve my nation. Even though he was just a recruit, Huo Yuao was full of pride at what he was doing. 2 hours went by. Kaplunk, kaplunk. 2 recruits finally couldn't take the torture of standing at attention anymore, and they fell to the ground. The temperature wasn't that high at the moment, or they would have gone down a lot quicker. Army medics instantly appeared and carried away those who had fainted. More and more soldiers crumpled to the ground over the next hour. Of course, there were those who pretended to faint, but the army medics weren't fooled at all. They gave each person who pretended to faint 10 lashes, and nobody else dared to pretend afterwards. The 3 medium team leaders stood together and whispered to each other from time to time. This batch of recruits is of average quality, but there aren't many troublemakers after all. I remember when we were training a new batch of soldiers the last time. Everyone rioted collectively after standing at attention for too long. That was exciting. Shishui muttered softly to his companions. Young Tian chuckled and agreed. Riding, that was great. How comfortable is it to beat people up justly and rightfully? You're so violent. Longshan snapped. 3 hours went by, and there were only 100 soldiers left standing. Furthermore, most of them were shaking and swaying, and looked like they could fall to the ground at any moment. The 3 medium team leaders' expressions grew serious and solemn. They paced continuously beside the remaining recruits, and observed their expressions. Those recruits whose faces were too pale were immediately escorted away by army medics to rest. In terms of overall endurance, Hua Yuao's bunk wasn't that much better than the other bunks. At this point, there were only half a dozen people from his bunk left. Hua Yuao's spiritual power was so powerful that his perception was exceptionally strong even if he didn't deliberately direct his senses. Wang Xiodian was amongst those who remained, and several other youths that he had observed before also remained. One youth who wore a grave and stern look on his face even emanated soul power undulations. Even though his soul power undulations weren't that strong, a soul master enlisting in the army and starting as a normal fighting soldier was quite interesting. Chapter 417.3. Being a soldier feels good. Hua Yuao's soul power undulations didn't leak out at all. With his current physique, he would have no problem standing for 3 days and 3 nights. Since he had decided to present himself as Tang Dong, he wouldn't use his abilities as a soul master unless absolutely necessary. But Hua Yuao had absolutely no trouble standing out and performing better than normal soldiers with his strength, his experience in combat, and his physique. Most of the remaining recruits couldn't take it after yet another hour passed. Recruits dropped to the ground one after another around them, while Hua Yuao and the other recruit with a grave look on his face remained. That recruit was sweating profusely, and when his body felt very uncomfortable, he would quietly circulate soul power and readjust his condition. Using that method, he could also keep himself in this position for a very long time. He glanced at Hua Yuao from time to time, attempting to sense Hua Yuao's soul power undulations, but he couldn't discover anything at all. 4 hours had now gone by. The sun was starting to dip over the western horizon, and it was just 1 hour away from evening. Most of the recruits who had collapsed to the ground were treated and sorted by the army medics. They were given a little salt water, and most of them recovered after resting. They stared at Hua Yuao and the stern-looking youth who was still standing, and couldn't help but admire them. In the army, the strongest individuals were the most respected and admired. Even some of the recruits in Hua Yuao's bunk who still resented him felt their resentment slowly dampen. He's so powerful. No wonder he can become a private first class, and he can stand longer than everyone else even though he's wearing leather armor. Leather armor provided decent protection on the battlefield, but it had some weight. Leather armor was also good at keeping warm when a soldier was standing at attention. A clattering of horses' hooves were heard. Furthermore, these horses were coming towards them, and the recruits all turned and looked and the hoofbeats were coming from. 2 horses arrived side by side. Zhuang Tian, their large team leader, sat on one of these horses, while another high-ranking commander in plate armor sat on the other horse. Almost everyone's eyes widened when they saw this commander. They were incredulous, and some were even a little mesmerized. Yes, this high-ranking commander was a lady, and a beautiful one. At that, she had large eyes, and her golden hair draped and flooded behind her head. She was slim, and her body ratios were good. Her plate armor seemed to have been tailor-made to her frame, fit tight to her, and brought out her figure. Her skin couldn't be considered fair, but had a healthy wheat color. She seemed valiant and heroic as she sat on her horse, and was truly enchanting. Everyone could tell from the white cap behind her back that she was a battalion commander. Battalion commanders were considered mid-level ranks in the military, and if she could be promoted to a division commander, she would officially be a high-ranking officer. At the same time, battalion commanders were considered natural moats for many lower-level officers. Many large team leaders would put in a lot of effort throughout their entire careers, but never get beyond that rank. The appearance of this beautiful battalion commander, who looked only a little older than 20, instantly ignited these recruits' hormones. Those who were sitting on the ground and resting didn't need their superiors to order them. They swiftly got to their feet one after another and stood at attention. However, their bearing wasn't proper, and their appearances still reflected the state they were in before this. The 2 horses arrived in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Zhuang Tian was a little surprised when he saw that 2 recruits were still standing. Quite some time has gone by. These 2 recruits have quite some discipline and quality to remain standing after more than 4 hours while burning under the sun. Zhuang Tian focused, and Hua Yuao was the first person he noticed, before he glanced at the grave-looking youth behind him. The beautiful battalion commander and Zhuang Tian stopped at the same time, pulling on their reins. The 3 medium team leaders swiftly stepped forward and saluted the lady battalion commander. They raised their voices and said, "Greetings, battalion commander." The beautiful battalion commander had quite a demeanor. She only nodded in their direction before she waved at Zhuang Tian to signal something. Zhuang Tian shouted, "Assemble, everyone." All the recruits ran over as rapidly as if they had been pumped with adrenaline, and formed up. The beautiful lady's charm seemed to transcend the large team leader's majesty and intimidation, and those recruits' exhausted bodies were replenished by the force of their hormones. Everyone could see the battalion commander's beauty more clearly as they came closer. Her nose bridge was sharp and straight, and her rosy lips were wet. Her face was a little skinny, but her large blue eyes were sparkling with energy and spirit. Even though her figure wasn't exceptionally stunning, the lines on her armor perfectly brought out her mesmerizing female charms. Zhuang Tian was relatively pleased with his recruits' behavior. He surveyed them as he raised his voice and said, "Let me introduce everyone. This is the battalion commander of the 7th Division's 3rd Battalion within the 6th Reserve Legion, Xu Yun. If you guys can pass all your tests, you will become a warrior under Battalion Commander Shu's wing. Raise your weapons and greet Battalion Commander Shu." Greetings, Battalion Commander. Greetings, Commander Shu. They were recruits after all, so even their exclamations were mixed up. Hua Yuao had been observing this battalion commander ever since she arrived. Such a beautiful lady appearing in an army camp was probably a little abnormal. Hua Yuao wasn't deliberately controlling his spiritual power, but even then, he could automatically cover almost 100 meters around him. He discovered that when this battalion commander appeared, the expression of the youth behind him changed conspicuously, and his blood flow increased rapidly, while his emotions became a little excited. He was also the first person that the battalion commander paid attention to when she arrived. When her eyes swept over him, a faint look of disdain and contempt flowed from her eyes. Even though this look only flickered once before it disappeared, Hua Yuao still managed to capture her expression clearly. Large team leader Zhuang, how is this batch of recruits? Commander Shu finally spoke, and her voice contained the kind of bravery that only female soldiers could have. Her voice wasn't very gentle and tender, but it was still melodious. They're all right. Even though these recruits are of average quality overall, there are some who have potential. Soldiers don't just need talent. As long as soldiers are willing to put in effort, a little lack of talent isn't considered much. You can still become a good soldier. Zhuang Tian was very satisfied with the fact that Hua Yuao and the stern-looking youth could stand until the very end. They boosted his impression before the battalion commander. "You and you. Step out." He pointed towards Hua Yuao and the other guy. Hua Yuao grasped his spear with one hand as he took 2 steps forward. He was still standing very straight. The stern-looking youth hurriedly followed suit. However, he didn't continue standing behind Hua Yuao, and walked up next to him. Even though he was playing it cool, Hua Yuao could clearly feel that his emotions were very excited, and a little unstable. He was putting in a lot of effort to control himself, and only then could he avoid glancing towards the battalion commander. "Your performance is impressive. Are you both from the first bunk?" Zhuang Tian asked, reporting. "Yes, sir." The stern-looking youth responded without waiting for Hua Yuao to speak. Hua Yuao's expression didn't change, and he answered with one word, "Yes." Zhuang Tian said, "All right. From now on, Tang Dong, you will be Small Team 1's leader, and all 30 recruits from your bunk will temporarily become Small Team 1. This arrangement has 3 times as many people as regular small teams, so you'll have to perform well." "Yes, sir." Hua Yuao's answer was still as simple as it could be. Zhuang Tian turned towards the stern-looking youth and said, "Dalu, you will be Small Team 1's Vice Team Leader, and you are promoted to Private First Class. You will assist Tang Dong in managing Small Team 1. Dalu was momentarily stunned, but he was still standing at attention as he answered, "Yes, sir." Back into formation, Hua Yuao and Dalu returned to the group. However, Dalu glanced at Hua Yuao when they were returning, and his eyes were different from all that coldness from before. His eyes now burned with passion, a passion that came from competitiveness. Hua Yuao was laughing inside. He could judge from the situation that Dalu should know that beautiful battalion commander personally. Was he joining the army as a soul master for this battalion commander? This youth was a soul master. He wouldn't be re-signed to his fate as number 2. It was normal that the youth wanted to take over Hua Yuao's position. The 3 medium team leaders subsequently made their reports and arranged a small team leader for the remaining 9 bunks. You have to remember that you are all just recruits. You have become small team leaders because you performed well before this. However, your position as small team leader isn't fixed, and you may be replaced at any time. Becoming a small team leader is very simple, and anyone can do it. As long as you perform sufficiently well during training, you will have a chance. Do you guys understand? Zhuang Tian admonished everyone at the end. Understood, sir. The recruits answered loudly. Zhuang Tian nodded satisfactorily as he turned towards Xu Yun and asked, do you have any instructions, battalion commander? Xu Yun said plainly, no, you guys can go, and we will assemble for training tomorrow. She turned her horse and waved her whip as she uttered her last words, before riding her horse off into the distance. Zhuang Tian watched her leave earshot before he raised his voice and said, disperse. Dinner will be in 1 hour. Who are you out turned and gestured to the first bunk's recruits to form up and return to camp. Dalu was very cooperative about this, and stood next to Who are you as he led the remaining 28 people back to the first bunk. Xu Yun is a little interesting. Who are you smiled faintly. The battalion commander was also a soul master, and her cultivation rank wasn't weak. Who are you could sense that she had at least 4 soul rings, and she was only about 20 years old. The fact that she had such a cultivation rank was quite impressive for her age. Dalu was a little weaker, but he should be younger than Xu Yun was. Dalu. This name seems to feel very familiar. The recruits were beyond exhausted after training for the entire afternoon. They conversed a lot less than they had when they first arrived, and everyone returned to their bunks after dinner. Quite a few people just collapsed onto their beds and quickly dozed off. Who are you sat down on his own berth and began to daydream as he listened to the other recruits snoring. For him, it was luxurious to even have time for daydreaming. However, he was contemplating a lot of things even as he was daydreaming. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.